what's at issue here, in my opinion, is the enrichment and reprocessing capability. The reason that the Israelis and the Trump administration didn't like the JCPOA is because it allows Iran to enrich uranium. And the Israelis and the Americans want that capability completely taken away. The problem is the Iranians did not agree to that back when the JCPOA was being negotiated, and they're not going to agree to it now. And the question is, where does that leave Trump? And your point is, he really, given his rhetoric, doesn't have any choice but to turn to bombing. And then we get into the whole issue of where that leads, especially in terms of the fact that we have this problem with regard to Ukraine now, and we have these tariffs and so forth and so on. It does kind of look like the perfect storm. I kind of find it hard to believe that he would actually start a war with Ukraine, given what's going on, start a war with Iran, given what's going on with these tariffs. But if he does, the consequences could be even worse than we're seeing with the tariffs. So this may be a perfect storm. Danny, I'd like to just make a quick set of comments to you about Trump and just about the whole Iran issue and what you said about Trump saying he could shut down the Ukraine war even before he came into office or one day in office. I think what Trump doesn't understand is that the world is incredibly complicated, and dealing with problems like Ukraine and the Iran nuclear program and dealing with China are not easy issues to deal with. At the same time, Trump thinks he's a genius, and he does not respect expertise. If you look at the people that he appoints to important positions, including his press spokesperson, these are people who shouldn't be in these positions. They're just not seasoned enough. They're not knowledgeable enough. And in some cases, they're not smart enough. But he doesn't respect expertise. If you just look at the appointments that he's made, and a really good example of this is that he has this guy, Steve Witkoff, who is his principal point person on dealing with Russia, on dealing with the Middle East, to include Netanyahu, and to include the Iranians. He's got three portfolios: Iran, Israel, and Russia. This is a man who has no diplomatic experience. He's not seasoned diplomatically. He's not studied these issues over the years. He's just a good friend of Trump, and he's obviously a very smart and competent man in the real estate world. Would you take a real estate mogul and put him out there to deal with three very complicated problems? If you were president, I don't think so. You'd want really smart people around who really knew the issues so that you could figure out the best possible way, maybe the least bad alternative for dealing with these complicated issues. But this isn't the way Trump operates. Trump thinks these are simple problems to solve. He basically knows how to solve them. And all he has to do is, get one or two people into positions of power who will work with him, and they'll fix these problems. And then he can point all these second-rate and third-rate people to other positions, and it really doesn't matter. I think this is a prescription for disaster. Israel is a strategic liability for the United States. It's an albatross around our neck. The reason we're fighting the war in Yemen now is because of Israel. The Houthis have come to the defense of the Palestinians who are a victim of a genocide in Gaza. And we are fighting the Houthis on behalf of Israel. The New York Times reported yesterday that military leaders in the United States have concluded that our war against the Houthis and our deployments in the Middle East are sapping our ability to contain China in East Asia. This is just all evidence of what a liability at the strategic level Israel is. And now we have this situation where they want us to attack Iran. And by the way, in April of last year, this is April 2024, and in October 2024, the Israelis tried to bait the Biden administration into a war with Iran. Why didn't the Biden administration enter a war with Iran? Because it's not in our strategic interest. Here we are again with the Israelis playing games with us, trying to get us into a war that is not in our interest. But this is nothing new. Fortunately, the Biden administration played this one smartly, and we avoided a war. Trump, I believe, deep down wants to avoid a war. And as we were talking about 5 minutes ago, the incentives for him now to avoid a war are greater than ever. So I think there is a reasonably good chance that we will avoid a war. But it won't be because the Israelis are helping us to avoid that war.
Right.
It will be in spite of the fact that the Israelis are pushing us really hard to get into a war that is not in the American national interest. And of course, all of their minions here in the United States will be working overtime to help push us into this losing proposition.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند